child, my parents begin putting a value system in me. And it's that value system that has made me who I am. And if you exchange home with me and put me somewhere else, uh, the value system of that home is what will cover me. And when I come to know that, I stop this idea of judging people. I recognize that I need to be thankful to God for where I was born. And God has given me a work to go out and rescue people. You see, when we speak about raising boys, and anyone can say to you, the folks, the violent crime, the shooting, the pickpocketing, but the police trying to keep up with the shooting now. But anyone can say that this thing is from urban centers. And in Trinidad, all the urban centers are Afro-populated. And we can see the impact of that. So how do you raise boys in those communities? Now, raising boys comes with its own set of unique challenges, particularly in a diverse, multi-ethnic and multicultural society like Trinidad and Tobago. I note I did not say plural society. Yeah? It is not. It's a misdemeanor that even politicians say that because of, well, not everybody know everything. But I want to say a multi-ethnic and multicultural society like Trinidad and Tobago, and the wider Caribbean for that matter. But more so in urban centers. Boys today are growing up in a world that is rapidly changing. They face new pressures and challenges that previous generations may not have encountered. As parents and caregivers, our role in shaping their character, values, and attitudes towards the world is more important than ever because they are bombarded with all things from all sides. So how do we raise boys? I want to start by saying a mother cannot father a child. There's a Jamaican writer who wrote this book, The Mother Who Fathered Me. But that cannot happen. It wasn't meant to be, and it cannot happen. No, in Colossians, we have that text, fathers provoke not your children to anger, lest they be discouraged. Now, children in Jewish writing mean male. The Hebrew word yered is translated boy or children. In the Jewish agrarian society, the boy child was a treasured possession. In fact, still in Eastern society, men kept their boys at home until they were 40 plus years. And girls, as soon as menstruation began, they looked for a husband for that girl. And married couples slept on a white sheet that would be hung in the window the morning after. And if it was still white, she had to return home to her parents. That's how they treated with girls back in those days. And in Genesis 18, I think I have it somewhere here. Genesis 18:19 said, "For I know him," that's Abraham God was talking about, "that he will command his children and his household after him, and they shall keep the way of the Lord." And I want to take note of something he's saying here. For I know him. Not that I know them. It is not a parental responsibility as the Western world have made it, but it's a father's responsibility to raise his children. It's not a mother's duty as most men think it is. It is the father's duty to raise the men, raise the children. You see, there are stages of development, and these stages impact boys are different from girls. But while the development might be the same, the impact is different. I think that's my preamble this morning. I don't know if um Akila is on. I saw Candice.
Yes, I am seeing Aquila as well. Yes,
Okay.
so both of us are here. But Pastor, I'm hearing the topic for this morning, and I'm
Mhm.
hearing your preamble, and it's really raising boys in the hood. So already the topic is qualified in terms of, so it's not raising children in the hood, it's raising boys in the hood. So I want to ask then, are you saying that boys are different from girls in their social development?
Okay, not exactly at the beginning. Not exactly. Children get to know the world through a fixed set of behavioral patterns, a sort of three-stage process. Both boys and girls and these are necessary for them to transition from one stage to the next. The transition come during this process based on mothering. But when we get to different households and different socioeconomic or socioeconomic status or statuses, we come to recognize that boys and girls are challenged differently.
So, and can you now share these processes with us?
Okay. It begins with the ritual passenger. If you're in a home where there are babies, one thing you will observe that the baby eye is stuck on the mother, even when he's on the breast, even when he's in the crib, because one thing the baby knows more than any other thing is that mother's voice. That baby heard, I've been listening to that voice for 9 months. So the baby come to be looking at this voice that they have seen. You see, it begins with what they call a ritual passage, learning of self, discovering identity. Um, Charles Horton Curry called it the looking glass self in his theory of identity. He said, we are born not knowing who we are. A baby remains part of the mother as far as being a month old. His hearing is fuzzy, the sight is blurred, no hand and body coordination, and gradually the baby began an awareness of the environment. You remember that you're maybe too young for it, that poem. I first lived in a little house. It it was round and made of pale blue shell. You ever heard that story? The bird thought they call it.
No,
I,
unfortunately.
I first lived in a little house. It was round and made of pale blue shell. I next lived in a little nest. And the word to me was blue and round and made of pale blue shell. No, you gotta forgive me. This poem I learned some 50 something years ago. I next lived in a little nest covered by my mother. The world to me was made of straw and smothered something, something. I haven't go through it, 'cause I can't remember what it was. But this is what happened to the baby. By the third month, 3 months now, that baby on the outside, and that baby still feeling like he's in the inside, because he cannot see as the same blurry thing he was seeing in the womb. He's still seeing that. The same voice that was predominant. He's still having that voice. The only difference now, he's suckling on a breast, but he's seeing the world. By the third month, these natural inheritance characteristics are formed, and the baby begins to learn its world through touching, staring, and listening. It is here the identity is formed, and other telling who the child is. Here he begins to learn for himself. Negatives are reinforced as effective as positive. By the age of 8, the child identity given to the child and is accepted it. But that identity was given to the child. It wasn't no genetic thing. It wasn't it was given to the child. How it is given? By what I do and what I say. He began to put on, if he's a boy, he began to put on his father's shoes, coat and hat. It's the age he talks about his father as if he was a folk hero. It is where he gets his identity. Children are proud of their parents, regardless of how the parents look, or what ailment they may have. At that age, that his father is a hero. Children learn to act. It is out of the knowledge of that that's given to them. Everything is now shaped by the parents. A child is not different in the home and have his own ideas. No, these are shaped ideas. That Proverbs 22:6 said, train up a child in the way he should go. And when he's old, he will not depart. Train up the child in the way he should go. You are first asked to train the child to behave, to develop his character, how he ought to act in given circumstances. And after that, when he's old, the Bible said, he will not depart. But it starts with that training.
Thanks, Pastor. That verse is so, I always think about it, but we could see real life examples of parents who did train up their child or who seemed to be dedicated to their children, but still the children did not turn out the way that the parents or society expected them to. So how do we explain that then?
All right. This happens. There's another reason, you could say double standard, all these things. But it happened mainly because the second stage in that process of that child is what we call the liminal stage or the transitional stage. When that stage is compromised, all sorts of things happen. This is the stage between neither child or adult. It's a sort of limbo. And every encounter he has, he's reminded that he's not an adult or a child. The same thing is like, boy, big boys, you acting like a child. And then if he act like a child, if he act like an adult, boy, you think he's a man? So the child in that stage, the child don't know if I'm a boy or if I'm an adult. So he encountered that liminal stage. In that stage, he received most of his rebukes in life. And as such, he developed many antisocial traits. The parents don't know that is happening, so they say, why I can let a child so, and big boy like you? And then I try to jump out there as a big boy. You beat me down. What happened? You think you're a man? Oh, you're working for money in here? And these are the ideas that bring the confusion and problems is exhibited in the way he deals with all around him. And he becomes defiant due to the mental confusion. He develops strong bonds with others like him. Or social distinction become relevant. He believes his peers care more, love more, and know more than adults, even his own parents. And manhood becomes highly contested. I'm dealing with the raising boys in the hood there. And when you go down that road, he begins to contest that manhood to the point where you say, but he grew up in a good home. What is happening here? You didn't take in consideration all the things that happened during that liminal period.
Pastor, as we continue, what exactly is manhood?
All right. Manhood, there's a social understanding that we may embrace to say is manhood. But in the hood, in the inner cities, in poverty neighborhood, in urban centers, this term manhood can be redefined to only negatives. So I'm going to speak what it is, but I want to say to you, when you are in the inner city, it defines as only negative. The first aspect of what is manhood is sexuality and its various depictions. It's the outward show of sexual image. And that is learned in the society, in a proper society, it is learned the proper way. But in the urban centers, in children who the liminal period had been reset and all that, the manhood take a different sort of sexual image. It's an outward show. The guy see himself as the one who should control and have dominion over all things, including women. And if the woman is telling him what to do, somebody will say to him, boy, why you got the woman talking to you like that? Because manhood in the hood carry a different connotation than what you may see manhood as. There's in the hood also, manhood is a need for sexual relationships. So if you never had sex, you are castigated and made fun of. So the guy who has never had sex, he will not let them know that he never had sex. And he will strive and strive and strive for that opportunity to have sex. So women become sexual objects to him. He needs to have sex so that he will be considered he will be characterized as someone who have the pure and good manhood. A need for adventure. More partners, the merrier. So when he said, well, I slept with she, and I slept with she, and I slept with she, he's considered greater than the man who said, I'm keeping myself until I get married. Then the issue of manhood also is that I need to have a job. And that's why when you go to these universities, they are filled of women. You can't find men because men must have a job. So the early desire for education and money also sideline education because he must have a job. He's a man. He can't be asking his mother, and they're having girlfriends at 15 and things. He can't be asking his mother for money and things for his girlfriend. He cannot. So manhood will cause him to forego education. And then more deviant behavior is expected because when the boys get together, they begin to talk. And you have to have stories. Either you lie or you make those stories. You see, the pull in the hood is very strong. It is where the destruction of the youth is imminent, if not addressed. It is the most important stage in the transition. Fathers, at that stage, your intervention is most important. The son is transition to adulthood, and searching for being is more intense. It is here you win or lose. It is here you win or lose. It is here he wants to make these decisions for himself. And not knowing his situation, he becomes more vulnerable. It's where the father must let the boy know of his love for him. There are some fathers who have never told the boy child, I love you now. It seems uncomfortable to do. Or holding them and just hugging them as they pass you in the house. As you pass in, just hold him and grab him and give him a hug. Some fathers cannot do that. It was not done to them, and they cannot bring their mind to do it to someone. It is where the father, at that stage in father's life, it is where the father must let the boy know of his love for him. And the father's own personal struggles with manhood and fatherhood, the boy should know. The father must strive for building bonds. Let him hear you pray. Don't just close your eye and pray. Let him hear you pray. And when you pray, let him hear you calling his name in your prayers. It's tough. It's tough. But it's something we must deal with.
Thanks, Pastor. I'm hearing you, talking about young men trying to find acceptance with their partners when they go out and then trying to find acceptance from their parents at home and all these different things. Just a clarifying question then. Are you speaking of a young man or young men trying to find their identity then in all of this?
Yes. And I go back to Charles Horton Curry saying that the world is a looking glass self. Candice, if every time you go somewhere, someone say to you, oh, you're so ugly. After a while, you will start to believe that. There are people who say, there are two crazy things we say. Sticks and stones will break my bones, but words will never hurt me. That's a lie. That's a lie. That's a lie. And the other thing that is a lie is to say, is when folks say, I don't care what people say about me, I good. You see me? My self-esteem is as such that I don't care what people say about me. That's another lie. You see, the environment shapes everything. The environment is not about your mind, Even what's in your mind was shaped by behavior, by things that you experience. Create what's in your mind. Your mind do not create itself and then look at things that affects it. No. How you are treated as a child create your ability to think and what you think. And how you are treated in the environment you are creates that whole atmosphere on what you know to be right and what you embrace as right. That's how it is. So identity is important. And this what we call the ritualize or the incorporation, new identity incorporation back into the community. When we go into the community, we are trained for the community. When your parents tell us, like, girl, don't talk so loud, there's nothing wrong with you speaking loudly. But the community don't accept that from female. When you are sitting and your parents say, close your leg, girl, they won't tell the boy close his legs. Nothing wrong with you not closing your legs. But you are not being developed for home. You are developed for the community. So when you go to the community, you must have an identity that is acceptable by the community. So in this incorporation into the community, he becomes an adult based on teenage experience. He returned to the community with these traits. He is his teenage and as an adult. It is where the product is competed. You have found the person. He is now a citizen, trained to be who he has become. So you must teach by transmission of values. It's intentional, it must be intentional, and it must be a form of mothering. And once you get that right, you're on the way to have a strong young man in the hood, because the hood will come at him very fast.
Pastor, you spoke about raising boys, in the hood and socialization and stuff like that. And I want to understand, what are some ways could, these young men or these boys achieve what you would have mentioned before if they're surrounded by negativity? The environment isn't conducive of growth in a manner that would um cause them to be good standing members of society.
All right. Around them, there's a lot of negatives. That's a good question, because this will be the challenge of getting boys to walk a certain way in the hood. You see, in many Caribbean cultures, boys are often encouraged to suppress their emotion with phrases like, boys don't cry and man up. Still prevalent in some households. However, emotionally intelligent men are more likely to have healthy relationships, perform better in the workplace, and cope with stress more effectively. It is vital to create an environment where boys can express their feelings without fear or judgment or ridicule. You must create that environment. That environment must be created in order for you to be able to deal with boys and boys issues. So encourage your son to name and talk about his emotions. Help him understand that feeling angry, sad, or afraid is normal, and that it's okay to express those feelings in a healthy way. Reading stories with complex characters or watching films that tackle emotional issues can also be a great way to facilitate conversation about emotion. Let him see strong men who cried. Let him know that there are great men who did cry. Let him know when you had cried and what you cried about. You see, you got to make that young man know. Speak about Bible heroes who found themselves in state of despair. You see, in the hood, even when he goes to Instagram and Facebook and things like that, he will not see people crying. He will see happy people, strong people saying things about victory and conquest. And he will more and more believe that's how it's supposed to be and that he's different. We got to have that conversation. Would you post a picture crying? And he said, no, sure not. But the same thing with all of those who post a picture crying. Would you, all those guys who are posting girlfriends, how many of them? 20, 25, 100? But there are thousands of guys out there. And those who are not posting must be just like you. They have no girlfriend to post. So make him know, normalize his situation. And if you normalize his situation, then he'll be more able to deal with it. But if you allow him just to see what's going on around him as facts and as truth and as what is real, then you are setting him up and you're setting yourself up that he will just be difficult for you to deal with when all these experiences are around him in the hood.
I hear you, Pastor, speaking about creating this environment and normalizing his situation. But in the hood, as you say, Is there not a system that already exists that the young men have to live with on a daily basis?
Yes. 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 And that's what I'm saying is no bread and cheese. It is no bread and cheese. It is many moving parts. It's like making a caraloo. You have to put a lot of things in there for it to come out good. And this is a good question on that also. So you got to operate with code messages, you know. Raising boys to be thoughtful men means teaching them the importance of respect for others. This respect should not be limited to family and friends, but should extend to people of all backgrounds. You see, as I said, I grew up with my father. I never once heard him. When I say with my father, my mother, but father was in the house. I never once heard him talk bad about somebody. I never once heard him talk race and racial overtones, and so it became part of the family, 9 children, that never heard these things because people learn from being in the family, from what they hear and things like that. So given the diverse makeup of Caribbean society, instilling respect for different cultures, beliefs, and lifestyle, we prepare them for the world at large. I listen, right when I turn on my radio and I'm going down the road, whatever is on the radio, I'm listening to. It could be chutney music, it could be calypso, it could be jazz, it could be. I'm not running over myself to change the station. No, I wouldn't go out and get those music. But I learned, I taught myself, I forced myself to accept people regardless of who they are and accept their culture regardless of who they are. And you teach your child that. And they'll come away. I don't think that growing me. That grow because I saw what I heard, what I left home with. So you need to teach them to respect, respect others. And once respect become part of their philosophy in life, you find when they get out there, they will continue to respect. Lead by example. Show your son how to engage respectfully with others, especially when differences arise, especially when you do agree. Encourage conversation that highlight the value of diversity and the importance of treating everyone with dignity. Reinforce the idea that kindness is strength, not weakness. Kindness is strength, not weakness.
Pastor, I thank you so much for bringing, some perspective to that. And what would you say boys need to understand about being a man? You spoke about, fathers not saying they love, their boys and, hugging them, embracing them, and even being in the hood. What do you think is important for a boy to know in him growing up of what being a man actually is?
You see, nice, thanks, Akira. Boys are often given the message that being a man means being in control, self-sufficient, unaccountable. I remember I was at a wedding many, many years ago. I was a pretty young man, I'd be in my early 20s. And we were outside in the wedding, rhyming in the courtyard of where the wedding was held. Me and a policeman. He was young too. And we had another friend. He was married. We were not. And while we were there, his wife came outside and told him, come inside. So he tell her just now. She came a couple times and asked her to go inside. Eventually he decided to go inside because we asked him, boy, what's going on? Where we going? So when he went inside now, when she saw him come inside, she grabbed onto someone inside the wedding and started to dance with them. So he touched her on the shoulder and she mentioned to him, you can't see her dancing. So he came back outside. But he didn't tell us the bacchanal that went on the inside. So when he came back outside now, she came us after a while and she said, she called my name and said, I'm ready to go. And he said, fellas are going. And I think the policeman said, boy, had the woman control in here, but he didn't know the bacchanal was going on the inside. And in front of us, this man hit this woman one cuff. No, he internalized something that what the police guy said. He didn't see the guy as joking, and the guy wasn't aware that they were having some issues on the inside. So being a man mean to the policeman, to us young men, being a man mean I'm in control. The woman cannot tell me what to do. I'm self-sufficient. And I'm not supposed to be accountable to anyone but myself. But true strength lies in taking responsibility for actions, understanding the impact of their behavior on others, and being accountable for the decisions. And that is where all these Bible characters come in. That's where you need to talk. And friends, those who are listening to me and think church is just an afterthought, white man religion, you are doing yourself a disservice. Because it's within that area of church you can strengthen your hold on your boys, especially when you're in the hood. No, there's a saying that some folks say that these African guys who went on to the white man religion, what I have discovered is that Africans who hold on to the gospel of Jesus Christ are more successful in their marriage, more successful in their drugs, more successful as far as education is concerned. They are just more successful. So I'm saying to who listening to me now, this is your crutch that God has given you, which is the church. Give your son age-appropriate responsibilities that will allow him to feel empowered and understand the importance of accountability. Let him do things that you need to do for yourself. Trust him to do some of these things. Whether it is chores at home, managing his schoolwork, or caring for a pet, ensure that he learns the value of being responsible. Also teach him how to deal with mistakes, how to own it up. Make him know that you will make mistakes. You're not God. Let him know that. And when he makes mistake, teach him to apologize as you will apologize when you make mistake. Teach him that. Teach him that making mistake only shows that he's human. Nothing else. It is demonstrating to that, but more than he's a human. And let it happen.
Thanks, Pastor, for the advice that was given. But I'm listening to it and I'm thinking, is there a possibility then that a young man or young man can go through all of this as we would have discussed so far and still fail, or it may interfere with the young man's sexuality then?
Well, Candice, you some people believe that you're making a man a CC. I want the thing they will say. And because they make him be a man. And when they say be a man, they mean all the negative things we talk about. If God is not in that, in what is being done, there's a high probability that you can still fail or you can interfere with their sexuality. But there's something that is becoming more and more absent even in the Christian service circles, and that is what we call compassion. Teach compassion. Compassionate men are leaders who inspire others through their understanding and willingness to help. You think through when the program is over, think about all the great leaders you know, and you see one thing that they all had was compassion. Think about all your church pastors, all your church leaders, your elders, your community leaders, all the good ones. And you see what all of them had in common was compassion. And you go to the Bible and you recognize we move from murderers like David, but then we move to his son Solomon and to Jesus Christ. And you can see the difference in all three of them. You can see compassion in Jesus Christ, compassion in Solomon. You will see that much compassion in David. And you recognize that the greatest of the leaders are those with compassion. So you got to teach your boys how to empathize with others, to care for those in need, and to offer kindness. And when they grow into men who they will go into men who will contribute positively to the community. You see, you got to incorporate volunteer work or community service into your family routine. This could be as simple as helping a neighbor or participating in a local charity event. Discuss with your son how these acts of kindness make a positive difference, how empathy can create stronger connection with people. Make them know everybody could love you. Everybody won't love you, but everybody could. And one of the key is your compassion, how compassionate you are. And once you are compassionate, you will find that your leadership skills will improve. And that's why I always say, part of the problem we have in the politics, there are too many lawyers there. And Candace, I'm not attacking the law fraternity this morning. Just saying there are too many lawyers there. You see, lawyers are trained to win the argument. Even if losing the argument will display compassion, that is not where they are. And all the world leaders are lawyers and from Italy to Putin to Moody to Orban to Macron. You just go, our lawyers. When you go to your parliament, even in Trinidad, they are packed with lawyers, you know. So no hard compassion will survive there. The idea is to win the argument. That's what the lawyers are about, winning argument. So you got to teach your boy something else. Winning the argument, being right, not always right. Being compassionate is always right. There is no time when compassion is not right. No time. But there are sometimes you are right, but you better take wrong, you know. A guy coming up the wrong side of the road, you are right to stay on that side, and you better shift, you know, because you die right. So being right is not always right, but being compassionate is always right. I hope I got through that question there.
Pastor, you spoke about compassion, and well, fostering.
Candice, we are still friends, you know.
Yes, Pastor.
Go ahead.
Pastor, as you spoke about fostering compassion, especially with these young boys in the hood coming up and just people in general, right? Um, how would you say we can prevent the boys from feeling different in a negative way, seeing that the model that is seeing the model that's upheld in society. You spoke a little bit about going against the grain, being compassionate, and introducing some things that's not the norm within, I guess, the hood. How do we ensure that these boys don't feel different, well, in a negative way, while doing, I guess, what we would consider, quote unquote, the right thing, and even exercising compassion?
Okay, good question. Perfectionism and fear of failure are common challenges for young men today. Sometimes I'm teaching a class, 40-something students, 3 men or 4 men, and I would teach that class for 3 months, and I would not know if those boys could talk or not, if they have an accent or not. They will not. But when I used to teach in theology, I have a class with 20-something, 30-something, only male. You can't finish the syllabus. They only talking. But when women are in their midst, they are constrained. And that's why single-sex schools do much better than mixed schools, especially for young men. Because they will not, because they are fearful of failure and they yearn perfectionism. And that's a natural thing with young men. So, especially in Caribbean cultures, the pressure to succeed away is a standard, is set, and it make a name for oneself by overwhelming, be overwhelming in what you do. However, no one is immune to failure. And learning to bounce back is an essential life skill. You know this song by Michael Bowden, When I'm Back on My Feet Again. You know, they all look at me again and they all see that I'm strong. Your young men need to hear those words. You will not always be standing. There'll be a time when you will stand, and there are times when you will fall. There are times when you will fail. They make them to know failure is not an enemy. It is not a disease, but it's part of life. Not only is part of life, it's part of success. Those guys' night song, overnight success doesn't happen overnight. That they need to understand that. They need to understand that. No one is immune to failure. Boys must be taught that failure is not a reflection of their worth, but an opportunity for growth. Always make them know failure brings experience, and that experience will cause you to go on. Help your son reframe failure as a learning experience. Help him to try new things, even if he might not succeed at first. Praise his effort, perseverance, and improvement rather than focusing solely on the outcome. Let that be your key. Your key in this whole thing is the experience that he gained. That when you are gone and you are pushed up the daisies, he have gotten good training that he can live with. Let that be your focus, not so much a result, but what I'm giving to him. Because you'll leave someday, you know. You must leave. And when you leave, it's good to know you are leaving him in a position of survival. Teach him the value of hard work, resilience in the face of challenges, and let him understand true masculinity. Let him understand that.
Yes, Pastor. And as we wind down, we appreciate everything that was said before. You mentioned something. I think we could close off with that thought then, about masculinity. Could you just tell us a bit about what is masculinity?
Okay. Masculinity can be viewed in many ways. And traditional, rigid views of what it means to be a man can be harmful. Because I said, when we speak of what it is to be a man, we have a kind of man thing there that is wrong. And so masculinity, in the sense of the society and tradition, is harmful. In the Caribbean, where cultural ideas of masculinity can sometimes be associated with dominance, aggression, or emotional suppression, it's important to model a positive balance view of manhood. Masculinity means that you are a leader, you are a lover, you are compassionate, you are intelligent in your thinking, you display a means of emotional intelligence. Boys need role models who show that being strong, capable, and confident does not mean rejecting vulnerability, compassion, or mutual respect. My mother was the one who grew us up, but I never doubt my father's masculinity. I always see him as a man, a true man, a real man, with all his faults. He wasn't aggressive, he wasn't overbearing, he wasn't dominant, but I never did not see him as a man. And men, we got to understand that. We don't have to dominate. When we come home, they try them playing all the time, but as soon as we walk in the door, silence in the house, they run to a room, the dog run down the step. No, 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 that's not the way. That's not the way. If that is your way of masculinity, you got it all wrong. Be the kind of man you want your son to become. Show him that being masculine can mean being kind, emotionally aware, humble, supportive of others. Let him see that true strength is not about controlling others, but about controlling oneself. Showing empathy and being respectful. Friends, once we got that, ladies, thank you for the question this morning. Once we get that going, I'm saying to you, once that has become part of us, we will, and we impart that to our young men, you recognize that in the hood, that they can survive all the negatives in the hood. They can survive all the problems of the hood. But it must start. It's something that you must do. Because the hood is a learning experience. One of you asked about the negative earlier. The hood is a learning experience for them. It is what they look at. It is what Charles Horton Cooley said as the looking glass self. You look and you learn. You learn to be a father. You learn to be a mother from looking at your mother and from looking at your father. These are learned experience. So when you want to put your boy out there, you got to make sure that your boy also is learning what you want him to become. So we got to go. I think we're finishing time because the cutters are waiting next place. So all those who have been listening to me this morning, whether you have been in Brooklyn and Queens, up the islands, wherever you have been, I want to thank you. And I want to say that in future, those who want to talk to me, you must speak to me on YouTube. That's the only way I will see your questions and what you are saying to me. So if you're sending it on Facebook or Twitter, wherever you're sending it, I will not get it. It must be on YouTube. This is where you have to converse with me. And from next week, I try to get someone to do a phone. But if not, if you can't get the phone done, I will ask you to ask your question on YouTube. So until then, may the good Lord be with you. Candice, Akira, you all have a great week. And thanks for everything. Okay?
Thanks, Pastor.
Yeah. You have color and you have connected Wi-Fi. Something happened, girl?
Yeah.
I recognize. I recognize. Until. Be blessed, everybody.
Later.
Bye-bye.